that's not too bad, right? Maybe move it a little bit. There, that's good. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today I am going to film for you a Q&A. It might be kind of in a few different segments. I asked for questions on my Instagram, and instead of answering them there in like a bunch of snippets that's kind of hard to follow, I figured I would just make a YouTube video about it and kind of answer all your questions in one place. And like I said, we might have to end up doing like a few different Q&A videos just if we get so many questions, and some of them might be better answered by Blake instead of by me because I'm a noob. Okay, so first question is, does every something have an airline and a sap line? How exactly does a vacuum work? Okay, so the vacuum, the reason that we have an airline and a sap line is so that if the sap line freezes, specifically this helps, if the sap line freezes at night, because ideally during sugaring you want below freezing at night and then above freezing during the day. So if it's below freezing at night, that sap line, whatever sap is left in that line is going to freeze. And so it allows the sap to jump up into the airline and continue to flow because that line hasn't obviously had sap in it throughout the day. It also just helps the transfer of vacuum and helps get vacuum out further in our sugar lots. Some of the lines are like crazy long, like 3/4 of a mile long or something crazy. So that helps to just transfer the vacuum and get it out to our entire sugar lot. Only the main freeways, I guess you could say, of our sugar lot have a double pipe, and we've just recently did that. I think last year was the first time that we had a double pipe. It's something that we've learned over the last few years and have slowly started implementing. As with anything, you kind of have to slowly implement things. We obviously wouldn't be able to go through our entire sugar lot and you know, upgrade everything in 1 year. We wouldn't have the time to do it, and we certainly wouldn't have the money to do it because all of this pipe costs a lot of money, and wire and all the other materials that go into it. So the double pipe is just on the main freeways, and then there are off main lines that connect off of the double pipes that go up into other sections of our sugar lot, and those ones are just a wet line. But at least the main freeway has a double pipe, and then again that sap, so if that sap's coming off of an off main line, a smaller main line, it can jump up into that airline if it needs to, if the wet line is frozen still. Hopefully that makes sense and kind of answers that. And then from the main line, there are what we call saddles put onto the main line, and that connects the little blue off lines that you guys see me showing onto that. So the off lines obviously don't have a double pipe, it's just an off line that runs up to the tree. And usually we try to keep like 10, it's like 7 to 10 I think is ideal. Taps on each offline. So ideally you have mainline going through most of your property and then just small offlines off of there. Less taps on each offline helps us with checking lines because it's much easier to shut down that line and shut down any leaks on that line. If there's only 7 tabs versus if there's 40 tabs, you have that much more potential for a leak. So it definitely helps with checking line, and also helps just with sap flow. If you have 40 taps on one line trying to run through this tiny little pipe, it gets like clogged up with sap, but basically the sap just can't flow as easily and as efficiently. So the less taps on the off lines, the better. So hopefully that answers some of your questions about vacuum. If you have more questions, definitely comment down below. It's quite a process, and it's something, like I said, we are just learning over the last few years. When I first started dating Blake, which was almost 7 years ago, we still had a ton of tanks out here, there, and everywhere. And so we had like many different tanks that we would have to go around and gather. Some of them we would have to still use the tractor with a sap wagon on it to gather. We still had buckets, like a ton of buckets out, which we've discontinued because Blake hates buckets. And so yeah, so hopefully that kind of answers that question a little bit. Let's go to the next one, and I'll try to answer more vacuum questions as we go. How many acres is your farm? Is it a family farm passed down from generation to generation? Okay, so the family farm, it is a family farm, and Blake is, well, we thought 5th generation, but his uncle just did some research and is 7th generation on this farm. So it's definitely been in the family for a long time. There is over 200 acres, I think, that goes with the farm, and that's owned by Blake's grandfather, and it's like in a trust, and so that's kind of how that works. As far as the property that we have taps on, we have I want to say about 3,300 taps on the home farm, on the Gowan property, and then we also lease taps on 2 other properties, and so those each have like a little over 1,000 or close to 2,000, I guess. I don't know. We're always constantly adding and subtracting taps every season. So we have 2 other properties that we lease, and we pay per tap hole for those properties, and I couldn't tell you the acreage on that, but that helps the landowners with paying their taxes and just getting something off of the land, and it also helps us obviously to be able to make money off of those maples. So yeah, that hopefully that kind of answers that. How many taps do we have? We have about 6,500 taps out this year. I think that's what he said, 6,500. We were thinking it was going to be 63, but we've added taps on, like I said, so about 6,500 taps now this year. Do you take the lines down every year? We don't. The lines stay up. The small tubing is good for, I want to say, like 7 to 10 years, and then the main line is good for 15 to 20 years, I think. So right now we're in the process of kind of going through all of our sugar lots and getting them up to par, up to standards as far as like what we hold now, because like I said, we've learned a lot, and so we have replaced a ton of tubing and a ton of main line over the last couple of years here. We officially took over their sugaring operation about like 3 years ago, I want to say. So we've been just slowly starting to kind of do that as we've kind of stepped into the role of the full-time sugar makers on the property. So the lines don't come down every year, they stay up, and then the goal would be every 7 years you're going to a different piece of our sugar lot, replacing the tubing, restringing it up to standards, you know, replacing anything that needs to be replaced. And then we also, when we go through and check lines, we obviously check to see if there's any chews. So anytime that there's a squirrel or something that has chewed a piece of tubing, we'll replace that as well. So anything that's being chewed and have holes in it is obviously getting replaced quicker. How do we fix chews in the main line? So Blake just did this yesterday. Or this morning. I think he was working on it yesterday, finished this morning, and so I'll let him answer that question, because honestly I don't know. I found a pretty significant chew when I was checking, one of the first times that I went out checking this year, in a main line, where it was either a deer or a coyote or something, pretty significant. Chewed, you know, took a bite of the tubing basically, and there were little tiny pinholes on the main line. And so what I did as a quick fix, and what's still there, we haven't gone back to it yet, is just use black electrical tape and tape it up as best you can and try to close those holes. So that's what I did on that one, and then Blake will go through, and I think he just has to kind of splice in some new pieces of tubing with something, I don't know. He deals with that kind of stuff. I can handle choosing the smaller lines. Okay, so if you don't take the lines down each year, how do you clean them? This is a good question. So we actually don't clean the sugaring lines. I'm sure there's maybe some people that will run like water through them or something, but we have found that we always run our vacuum when we're pulling spouts. So at the end of the season, obviously, once the trees have all shut down, we go through and pull all of our spouts out of the tree, gives the trees a break. We get rid of the adapters, so the plastic piece. Those ones are kind of a one year use. So those get taken out, and then we loop the spout back onto the tee, and then it's ready to go for next year. So it's closed up, the hole is closed, so nothing's getting into it throughout the summer and fall, and until we tap again. And then we run the main line, so it sucks anything that's still, we run the vacuum, so it sucks anything that's still in the tubing out of the tubing. And then usually for our first run of the season, whenever that is, we let that just run on the ground, and that just kind of, the sap itself flushes the lines out, and anything that was in the lines from the previous year that didn't get sucked out when we were pulling spouts, we just let that kind of run onto the ground. It's usually just a little bit yucky for the first day, and then after that it's crystal clear, beautiful sap, and it gets boiled down too, so anything that you think is going to be gross in the lines, it all gets boiled down and it's good to go. So and that's kind of common practice with sugaring. Okay, and then this is getting long already. When making syrup, does the amount of time it's boiled change the flavor? So this again is a good question for Blake. We have not done a significant amount of boiling. We ship most of our sap to another local farm, a bigger maple farm that is actually conveniently in our town. Blake actually works full-time for them too, so we ship most of our sap. We do boil, and we will be boiling here in another couple weeks. I know that when you start with higher sugar content, you get lighter sap, and so lighter syrup, and so that would tell me that if you have to boil it less, then you have lighter syrup. So the sap actually comes out of the tree sweet. Obviously it has sugar in it, or a sweetness to it, so usually it's like between like 1.9 all the way to 2.3 on a really sweet day. And so if you're boiling sap that's already at a 2.3 sweetness, you have to boil it less time than sap that's at a 1.9, because there's more liquid that you have to boil off. So I'm gonna say that if you boil it longer, you'll get the darker stuff, but we'll ask Blake about that one. What kind of face wash do I use? I use Mary Kay, whatever their skincare line is. So I use their face wash. I have their Microderm stuff that I'll do like a couple times a week, and then I try to moisturize. My skin is not perfect at all, but I try to take care of it the best I can. I'm noticing I'm starting to get some wrinkles, so I'm approaching 30 here. How big is your farm? So I already answered that one. Little over 200 acres. We don't own it though. We own 11 acres that goes with our house. How many cows do we have? We have 9 cows and 4 calves, so a total of 13. And we should have another couple calves here soon. Do we raise any other animals? I raised chickens for the first time last year. It was really fun. It's something I've always wanted to do. I didn't know about it. My dad has chickens though, so he kind of helped me through it. And I loved it. We'll definitely be getting chickens again. I'm hoping to really build a big flock and have a bunch of eggs so that hopefully I can sell them locally. That's kind of my plan with that, and I just really enjoy chickens. I love them. So I got straight run from Tractor Supply last year, and I ended up so I only got 6. I wanted to start small, and one of my chickens got taken by a hawk, so I only had 5, and freaking 4 of them were roosters. So I ended up with only 1 hen. So we kept the 1 hen and 1 rooster, and they're living with my dad for the winter with his flock of chickens. We just kind of mixed them in with his flock, and they've been doing awesome. And the rooster thinks that he is just living the best life ever, because he is. And so anyway, we have them. We don't raise any other animals as of now. I would love to have a whole bunch of animals, but I don't have that much time, so you kind of have to measure what you want to do. My dad raised pigs, and we really enjoyed them, and then he also has ducks. I've always said I wanted to get a goat because I think they're cute, but you know. Do we do any crop farming? So we don't do any like major crop farming, but we produce hay in the summertime that we have several customers that buy, mostly people that have horses that will buy our hay. So we do have that we do in the summertime. So once sugaring is done, we have to go through and pull spouts and clean up and all that stuff, and then we kind of have like a tiny bit of downtime, and then we're right into haying. We spread manure or fertilizer on our fields, and we go to town. So we produce hay in the summer, and we do the hay for our own cows and then also to sell. And okay, that was pretty much it for now. I'm still having questions come in, but I think that this video is going to be long enough, already at 15 minutes. So I hope that answered some of your questions. Definitely comment down below or send me a message on Instagram if you have any other questions, and I'm happy to answer them. I hope you guys will stay tuned for more videos about sugaring, about farm life, about farm mom life. Yeah, then we'll be moving right into haying season. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you later.